Now as touching things offered unto idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth. And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing yet as he ought to know. But if any man love God, the same is known of him. As concerning therefore the eating of those things that are offered into sacrifices unto idols, we know that an idol is nothing in the world, and that there is none other God but one. For though there be that are called gods, whether in heaven or in earth, as there be gods many, and lords many, but to us there is but one God, the Father, of whom are all things, and we in him, and one in Lord Jesus Christ, by whom are all things, and we by him. Howbeit there is not in every man that knowledge, for some with the conscience of the idol, and to this hour eat it as thing offered unto an idol, and their conscience being weak is defiled. But meat commendeth us not to God, for neither, if we eat, are we the better, neither, if we eat not, are we the worse. But take heed lest by any means this liberty of yours become as a stumbling block to them that are weak. For if any man see thee, which has knowledge, sit at meat in the idol's temple, shall not the conscience of him which is weak be emboldened to eat those things which are offered to idols? And through thy knowledge shall the weak brother perish, for whom Christ died. But when ye sin so against the brethren, and wound their weak conscience, ye sin against Christ. Wherefore, if meat make my brother to offend, I will eat no flesh while the world standeth, lest I make my brother to offend. Hello, it is Wednesday, August 6, 2014. This is your host, Mike Callahan, and this is the Watchman News. Continuing on, as usual, with the Corinthians project. That was 1 Corinthians chapter 8. And I don't get a whole lot out of this. What I personally get out of it myself is the same thing that a lot of Corinthians tries to teach as far as the knowledge and being humble and whatnot. That's basically what mostly I get out of it, other than that, of course we should worship one God. We shouldn't worship the idols. We shouldn't be worshiping all these entertainers and all these sports players and all these, it seems like we've gotten so far away from what we're supposed to be doing. And that's probably the most important part of this to most people. To me, it's to remain humble, because God already has me. I don't watch TV. I don't watch sports. I don't watch any of that other stuff. But most of you already know that. So anyway, I guess we can get started with the news. First off, I've got the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot news. I ran across this, and before we get to suspicious observers, and we do have a fresh new radioactive reality for today. Before we get to that, again, the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot news, and I'm going to say of the month, because this pretty well tops anything I can think of. I couldn't resist sharing this when I seen it, so without further ado, enjoy. No audio. Give me a second, that's my fault.
News at 6 o'clock. Police in Wagner arrested a newly hired teacher, Lori Hill, after they say she showed up drunk for her first day of work at Wagner High School. Now, officers say it didn't stop there. She was found not wearing pants. Fox 23's Rick Marinon is reporting live with why more charges have not been filed, Rick.
School here starts on Thursday, but depending on how the district reacts to a teacher who showed up here drunk, went through those doors, and somewhere inside this building she took her pants off, well, that teacher might not be with them for the start of school. The Wagner police chief tells Fox 23 News that the new high school teacher, Lori Hill, made quite the first impression on her first day on the job when she showed up to work intoxicated and didn't check in with administration officials, and then went into a classroom she claimed was hers and removed her pants.
Out of sorts, that they didn't know who she was and things like that. She was apparently new. It was supposed to start yesterday.
Police officers found Hill in the principal's office, where district staff had to detain her. Once officers arrived, police tell Fox 23, school officials found a pair of shorts for Hill to wear, and she confessed to drinking vodka in her car before work.
And when our officers interviewed her, she did admit having had some vodka yesterday morning before she came to school.
The chief tells me even though it appears that Hill commuted to Wagner High School from her home in Claremore and officers found a cup with a vodka odor in her car, she is only being arrested for public intoxication and not DUI charges because there are no credible witnesses who may have seen Hill drink at home and then come to work. Parents are shocked.
I don't know. As an adult, I just don't know how you could be a professional teacher and teaching young people and then show up drunk.
The district has declined our interview request, saying this is a personnel matter and they can't comment on it, so we won't be able to officially know until probably later on what the official punishment will be or even if Hill does resign. However, I did speak to some parents who have some ideas of their own. We'll talk to them on Fox 23 News at 10. Reporting live at Wagner High School, I'm Rick Marinon, Fox 23 News.
The Tulsa.
And if I can catch that update for the 10 o'clock news with parents is the parents no, not that, with the parents opinions on what should be done with this teacher. I will definitely update that tomorrow. How do you show up? I mean, I've worked a few different jobs in my life and I've never showed up without pants on. I'll tell you what, I did work at a truck wash one time and I did show up with one of each different kind of shoe on. And I really have no explanation for that, but it happened somehow. But I did have pants on, I can assure you. And I just don't understand what is wrong with people. I couldn't resist sharing that with you. Again, that's probably the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot news of the month. Even though it's the beginning of the month, I doubt I'll find anything more crazy than that. So anyway, yesterday I wanted to remind everybody I was late getting started. I was a half an hour late getting the show going tomorrow, or yesterday, something like that. Anyway, there was an awesome interview done with Sustenance and Covering. That's what he's known by on YouTube. And hour and 20-minute long interview that I had done with him. It's an awesome interview. We covered so many things from the Great Pyramids to the calendar to, oh my goodness, we talked a bit about selfishness. We talked about lots of things. There's a lot to be learned from just that one interview. And you'll get a little sneak peek of what's coming out. He's doing an Angels and Men series, and he's up to part 5 now. He's getting ready to release parts 6 and 7, and you'll get just a little bit of a preview. He tells us what's in 6 and 7, and once again, I'm so thankful that he spent the time with us yesterday. So let's get on with the news. I would reckon it would probably be wise to go straight to suspicious observers. So we'll see what Suspicious Observers has to say. I have not heard any more on News in 2 Minutes, when they're going to be back and exactly what's going on or anything else. So I'm hanging in there just like everybody else. But for now, enjoy some Suspicious Observers, find out what the sun's doing.
Good morning, folks. Just a reminder that you can go to observatoryproject.com anytime to see what city we are in. We'll be in Madison, Wisconsin, and have an official event tonight from 4 to 7 p.m. See the site for details. Interesting article on hot star-like objects cooling down to be like planets. Seems a point for the stellar pre-planetary proponents when it comes to Jupiter and Saturn. Article is linked for you below. We've been showing the Antarctic breaking high ice records left and right. This is from the NSIDC with help from NASA. But let's use NOAA's tools today to break this down even further. We're just looking at the June ice extent each year of the satellite age. Red line trending up. We've also got the September, December, and March extents going back more than 30 years, and there's no doubt the ice down south is gaining and breaking records. This, of course, contrasts the Arctic up north, which is under the average, but actually is nowhere near low record extent. Not even close, actually. Top earthquake of the day goes to South Africa. 1 person was killed and structural damage is being reported. At this time, here are the active tropical storms. We're going to begin off the east coast of the United States with Bertha, which is now expected to swing east and miss Canada, but then be headed directly for Europe. Should weaken a bit. It's tough to believe Genevieve's remnants are still alive, isn't it? Anyway, Isel and Julio are alive and kicking and heading west to encounter the Hawaiian Islands. Last but not least, we have Heilong, taking a long time to swing north, but beautiful motion to it. In Australia, the convergence swinging up from the Antarctic low is easily spotted, and that's where the clouds and rougher weather can be found. Meanwhile, the same 2 systems and south swinging convergences in Europe are active, so I'll once again point out that the heat wave area in the northeast is actually hotter than portions of southern Europe. In the United States, the heat and moisture continue to rush up through the central states and meet a flow to the south from Canada. That convergence cuts across about half the country. We'll need to watch for flash flooding amidst thunderstorms in this large area here. Solar wind speed in yellow is still slightly elevated, while the density in orange begins to drop off. KP index shows geomagnetic instability is unchanged, but the auroral weakness says the impact events were pitifully weak. Speaking of which, solar maximum is about over and weak as can be, not only in sunspot numbers, but with the magnetic mixing, or lack thereof, amidst the sunspots. Even when we do see positive and negative mixing to form a delta spot, can't seem to get any flaring from the active region. So still, the major eruption threat remains the plasma filaments. Big Boy up north is almost turned away from Earth, while a smaller but still sizable filament turns in on the south. We still easily see the coronal holes both north and south, but the north is blocked by the coronal fields, leaving only the southern negative opening, which appears to have some solid force to her. Right now, all is calm. Eyes open, no fear, at 6:20 a.m. Eastern Time, and that's the news. Be safe, everyone.
Alrighty, Suspicious Observers, and I do have quite a bit of stuff. I'm trying to hold off a little bit as long as I can. I do have information with the Ebola situation going on. I honestly don't know what I can share at this time and what I can't. So I'm going to try and push off any Ebola news until later in the newscast. So we'll try and cover some other things first. I don't want to get people in trouble, and I don't want to cause issues, cause waves or anything like that. So I don't know what I can share quite yet, but there is quite a bit of information that has came my way today on that, and I've been digging and trying to source it to other places so I can share it, and I haven't been successful. That's why I was late getting the notice up for the show, and that's why there's no real description for the show. What brings me to that is I normally have the link to Suspicious Observers down in the description. It's not down there as of yet. it will be at the end of the show. So anyway, like I say, I'm still waiting on permission to share other things. The only other video that I have right up for you before... Oops. You gotta love me. The only other news that I have for you will do with what's going on. I believe I've got information on... There we go. I've got information on North Korea and Russia as usual. Good stuff like that. But let's go ahead and get the radioactive reality for the week out of the way, and then we'll get into that stuff, and I'll save what I know I can share about Ebola for last, and we'll go from there. I was looking for a good video, looking for a good video on water filters. I've mentioned it about 3 times since I've started doing the show about how to build your own water filter. And there was a really good video that I had found on YouTube that showed how to do it in the particular method that I had explained to you guys. And I was looking for that today because I was going to share it, and I did not successfully find it. I will keep digging for it. Hopefully I will have it by tomorrow's show. And it's how to build just a simple survival water filter that could most definitely save your life. So if I can come across that between tonight and tomorrow's show, I will be showing that. If not, I will find another one that's similar to the style that I spoke of. I found a couple, but they just weren't very good. One of them was done by a young kid, and it wasn't actually a very good water filter. They wouldn't drink the water out of it after filtering it. They used it to water their plants, and I wouldn't have used it for much more than that. Considering they didn't use enough, well, in fact, this young girl didn't even use charcoal, but she didn't use enough sand. She didn't, So let me try and find that for you. But for right now, let's get to radioactive reality, and then we'll get to the news I have for you.
It is the 6th of the 8th, 2014. This is your radioactive reality, day number 1,244. Any news? Let's get started. Big surprise story. Newsflash, meltdown in Fukushima worse than thought. Most of nuclear fuel melted through reactor number 3 and continued down to the bottom of outer containment vessel. Has changed their understanding of what has happened inside. So over 42 months later, big surprise. Hey, at least they're admitting number 3 melted through and is out of containment and in the environment. The big mystery continues. Alaska, scientists alarmed by new mystery disease. Pacific Northwest, alarming changes. Couldn't believe my eyes. Scientists really stumped. It's a kind of alien thing. So now they're blaming aliens because they don't know. Big mystery. Quote, gotten much, much worse. A horror show could wreak havoc on entire ecosystems from Mexico to Alaska. But don't worry, folks. These brilliant government scientists have stated that, hey, there's no way the radiation from Fukushima could have reached the West Coast by now, when countless studies have proven otherwise. Round and round, deceits, lie, insanity. New report estimates 278 trillion becquerels of plutonium released from Fukushima reactors, over 200 times higher than amount reported by TEPCO. I'm sure these numbers are very low as well. Quote, highly radiotoxic when incorporated into human body as it decays. But don't worry, folks, there's no immediate danger. They've got everything completely under control. In comes the UN. UN whitewashing Fukushima catastrophe. Yet the report reveals, quote, more than 9,000 people will die of cancers. Number likely much higher if correct data is used. If they would only use the correct data, well, that might cause panic. Professor, quote, it's brainwashing, an infamous lie, and abuse of science. Their own data contradicts their public conclusion. You think they're hiding something? You think they're not telling us something? How wrong is this? How bad is this? We'll never know, because they keep dancing around and dancing around. Liability and profit. Fukushima globally enhanced cesium-137 levels in air by 2 to 3 orders of magnitude. And we all know this cesium-137 likes to run all by itself with nothing else with it. What about those 1,300 other radioactive isotopes that get released alongside of cesium-137 or strontium or cobalt-60 or any other of these oddball isotopes that they keep throwing out one at a time? Don't worry, it's just one of these things. It's not one of these things. It's over 1,300 of these things. And it's in the air. It's in the water. Plutonium from Fukushima went further than Chernobyl. Yeah, we already had reports that it circled the entire northern hemisphere in 4 days. The entire northern hemisphere. Excuse me. Sample was from site farthest from Fukushima plant. Concerned material is flowing into Pacific Ocean from land. Well, yeah, they've had 3 breached containments. The coriums have left the building and are down in the environment, seeping directly into the Pacific Ocean, on top of all the other water madness that these guys are doing, pumping it directly into the Pacific Ocean. Not to mention the open incendiary burning that the Japanese does to their garbage. They've been mixing this radioactive tsunami debris and everything else in with their garbage and burning it, releasing it into the air, and of course it gets blown over to the United States. The story goes on and on and on. But don't worry, folks. The Yakuza have it completely under control. It's a Japanese mafia, if you don't know what that is. Huge increase in dead and sick mammals on California coast. Unprecedented numbers. Annual record broken in 7 months. Starving, drooling, brain damage, suffering seizures. Sea lions mysteriously vanishing on the other side of the Pacific. The Russians are having a hell of a time with their sea lions, dying off in droves. Expert, we don't know what's happening. Of course, they're going to blame everything but the nuclear industry. Government report. Over 1,750 Navy sailors suffer from ill-defined conditions after exposure to Fukushima radiation while aboard the USS Reagan. Significant increases in male infertility and childbirth complications. Dozens have thyroid disorders, many spontaneous abortions. Veteran extreme measures used to cover this up. And of course, they are working very hard to make sure this information doesn't get to you, the general public. What would you do with it anyway? Take it to Walmart, buy something else on special made in Japan. Lab director, expect radiation spikes coming from U.S. nuclear facility. This is WIP. Government pays for more air monitors to see impact on populated areas. They want to see the impact. DOE warns of ignitability of 368 containers at site. Significant fire risk. Top official, material at WIP just disintegrated, got very hot very quickly. And what they're talking about now is sealing off completely storage areas 6 and 7, where the reported collapse happened anyway. So they're just going to bury this whole thing and just pretend it didn't happen. I really don't know what's going on at WIP, and they just keep going round and round and round and round. And I mean, we've seen this over and over and over again. Of course, the insanity continues. Millions of fish dead at Oregon coast. Craziest thing I've ever seen. You can't blame people for being alarmed. Aquarium, quote, it kind of looks like the apocalypse, especially big numbers. But this is a sign anchovies are doing good? Question mark? They're trying to spin a positive thing on this story. The insanity continues. And again, these people have no idea because nobody wants to look at the obvious. Millions of fish found dead on California coast. 3 major fish kills in 2 weeks. Unidentified goo floating nearby. Please clear out beach. Call health officials in to investigate. But don't worry, folks. Everything's perfectly under control. Tokyo professor surges in airborne radioactive releases have gone on for years at Fukushima and every other single nuclear power plant on the planet. Shut them down. Shut every single nuclear power plant down. Every one of them. Radiation alarms sound for hours at plant. Extensive area being impacted. Yeah, the entire planet's being impacted. Report worst he's ever seen, says Alaska boat captain. Fishermen talking about Fukushima, convinced it has something to do with it. Salmon not showing up. Many have lesions or worms and parasites. Crabs more easily damaged. A lot of dead catch. Herring, cod, halibut, pollock catches dropping off the cliff. Something mysteriously big is going on in the Pacific Ocean. Well, we all wonder what that is, now don't we? Nuclear waste flowing out to sea from underground tunnels at Fukushima. 950 billion becquerels of cesium in Unit 2 shaft next to the ocean. 1,100 tons estimated in tunnels. Stream of moving water. Government regulators urgently assessing the problem. Sense of crisis is needed. These tunnels run throughout this nuclear power plant. And the coriums have left the building. Of course it's leaking. And it will continue to leak for millions and millions of years, because these guys really have no idea how they're going to get this stuff out of there or what they're going to do to stop it. They're doing everything they can to control the information coming out of Japan and what's going on in the Pacific Ocean on the west coast of the United States and the entire northern hemisphere. It's an ongoing challenge for them. We need to speak up, every single one of us. If we don't speak up now, it's going to be too late. I don't know what else to tell you today. That's about all I got for you. Of course, if I missed anything, please let me know. Attach your comments or videos below. Enjoy what you can, everybody. Thanks.
All right, that was Nibiru Magic 2012, and as always, personally, I thank him for his efforts. He does a wonderful job. About once a week, releases that report on what's going on. And what can you say to that? I had a discussion with a friend today named Charles. We're trying to get him on as a guest. He has kind of a busy work schedule, and I would be honored. I've known him since 2006. We've had many great discussions. We've had many great everything from gaming discussions to biblical discussions, and we're trying to fit in time when he can get on the show. And I may have to do just like I did with sustenance and covering. I may have to actually do a recorded show and go that route, which that's fine too. But I wanted to share with you a little bit of our discussion. One thing that me and Charles constantly go back and forth on is, and when I say go back and forth, not in an argument, just in discussion, is the timing of revelations. And you know, he keeps bringing up the third seal and basically the cost of bread equaling a day's wage. Today he brought something else up. He brought up about a third of the Earth's water being bitter, and I reminded him that the Pacific Ocean is pretty close to a third of the Earth's water, okay? And it's already irradiated. We already have all these dead fish washing up. We already have all this stuff going on, and it hadn't even started yet. This corium, it breached the bottom of these reactors on not one, not two, but 3 reactors, okay? And that radiation is still being somewhat, if you want to call it that, filtered through the Earth before it gets through to the actual water. There's probably going to come a point in time to where that corium actually enters the water directly. And when that happens, there's going to be a drastic increase in the radioactivity of that water. And it's pretty much probably going to kill everything in the Pacific Ocean. I mean, it's not going to take long. I can't remember how many days it took for the first bits of radioactive material to start washing up on the Pacific coast. It wasn't very long. It wasn't as long as what they say in the news and all that. I do recall just from this show here, he said it took 4 days to circle the northern hemisphere through the jet stream, and of course that's quicker than washing up in the ocean. But still, that should be a wake-up call. Now at the end, he made a comment that I want to point out about that we all need to stand up. We all need to do something. We need to say something now. I don't know what that's going to do, and I'm sure he doesn't either, because what are we going to do? I mean, it's a situation that I don't really know if there's any good answers for. I know how to purify it out of the air. I can answer that. Anybody that studies plants and whatnot know what filters the air better than anything else, and this is going to be one of those controversial topics. But hemp plants, if we start planting hemp plants, it will actually filter the air. I forget how many times what a tree would filter the air, and it does it much more quicker, much more efficiently, and everything else. So that would be our answer to get it out of the air. But then you have the issue of getting it directly out of the soil, because of course when we have precipitation, whether it be rain, snow, that's what brings the radiation down onto the earth and into the soil. But how do we get it out of the ocean? I don't, we don't have a water filter that big. I don't know, but I do know that I agree with him. We need to do something. We need to say something. We really need to get on this, and we need to get on it quick, because if we do get on it right away, maybe there are people that are smarter than me in the area that can come up with some ideas on how maybe to filter it out of the water. Hey, there was a lot of people during the BP oil spill down in the Gulf Coast that came up with awesome ideas on cleaning the water out. Unfortunately, they didn't use those. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? But I remember there was all kinds of people coming forward with different devices and different things, and instead they used one of the most toxic chemicals they could come up with on Earth to help filter that if you want to call it filter that water. I don't know exactly what it did. I don't know if it like clotted the oil together so they could gather it easier, or if it dissolved the oil into the water. I'm not quite sure what it did. I'd have to dig into that a little bit, but I can tell you that it was listed as one of the most toxic chemicals on the planet that they used to do that with. And there was all kinds of people that come up with all kinds of different ideas. It's just as he says, the insanity continues. It just does. It doesn't matter how good of an idea you have or anything like that. If the right people aren't going to be the ones that profit from it or benefit from it, then your idea is just not going to be heard. It's pretty much that simple. Or if Walmart can't sell it nowadays, it's disgusting. It really is. I support capitalism 100%. I believe in capitalism. I believe it's the way, I'm not a conservative, I'm not a Republican, but capitalism is what made this country economically strong. What we have in this country now is not capitalism. It's not whatsoever. I mean, these big corporations are flying the capitalism flag, but it's more like, it's not even a monopoly anymore. It's worse than that. And there's a lot of isms you can attach to it, and I call it idiotism. I mean, destroy an entire species, the human race, for greed. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't see how anybody can really benefit from that. But I wanted to rant a little bit about that, because it's frustrating. It really is. It's extremely frustrating to see these things going on in the world and nothing really being done about it. I mean, it's the Japanese mafia that's in control of the situation. They don't want to lose money. They don't want to have to accept responsibility for what's going on. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I wonder how many people remember that it used to be in the Japanese culture that if a Japanese person let down another person, especially in business or such things, that it was part of the culture that that person actually committed suicide. I wonder how many people actually remember that. I remember it from school. I remember being taught in school that that was just kind of part of one of their cultures, and it seems like they become Americanized. You know what I mean? Because well, you just don't see too many people over here take responsibility for things, and it seems like that's spread globally. And I'm not saying that the United States is at fault for it, but either way, it's sad. We need to all learn, uh, as individuals, to learn to take responsibility for things. Hey, there's nothing wrong with being wrong. There's something wrong with being wrong and not admitting it. That's where the problem lies. But anyway, let's get on to the news that I have for you. And I always say I have for you. I kind of just read other news, but it's news that I gather from around the world and get to excite you guys with, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I had to have a sip of coffee. Here we go. Putin urges government to prepare a response to Western sanctions. This is something we need to pay attention to. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Tuesday he has told the government to retaliate against Western sanctions. I have already prepared such instructions today, the president said during a working trip to the central Russian, yeah, there you go, region. Of course, it should be done very carefully so that domestic manufacturers are supported without detriment to consumers, he added. Putin said that the use of political instruments to put pressure on the Russian economy is against all norms and rules. Political instruments for putting pressure on the economy are inadmissible. This is against all norms and rules. In this respect, the Russian government has already come forward with an array of retaliatory measures to the so-called sanctions imposed by certain states, he said. I wonder who he could mean by certain states. I think the United States would be a huge one in that. Hey, we're poking the bear here, all right? This is the bear, and we're poking the bear. We need to stop poking the bear. Because the other problem is when you poke the bear, you wake up the dragon. We don't want to poke the bear, and we don't want to wake up the dragon. We just don't. Our country right now, and I'm not putting it down, this is just a fact, our country militarily is weak. We have low enrollments in our military forces. We have low amounts of money in their budgets. You all know that my feelings are that this is all being done on purpose. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. And, you know, once you start digging, you realize it's all part of the play anyway. But still, this should be a wake-up call, because this is going to, you know, the world wars have eventually, you know, when you boil it all down, you eventually find out they've been fought over money. And it's also a situation where economies, when they failed, we go to world war. It's the idiots, it's what they do, okay? Somehow they get that resets the currency, and that's what we're getting ready for. We're getting ready for a huge currency reset, and I'm not quite sure it's even quite called a reset. I think the U.S. dollar is going to be totally gone. I don't think this is a reset. I think this is a do-over. Unfortunately, it's not just going to be a do-over. It's also going to be a do-in, because that's what it's going to do. It's going to do us all in. They're not interested in how we fare out of it. They really aren't. It reminds me a lot, and I haven't studied a whole lot on it, and I probably need to, so I have a little more understanding, but the New Deal that went on back in the early 1900s. But from what I do understand about the quote-unquote New Deal, this is a very similar in line with it, but I think this is going to be much, much, much worse, because we have all kinds of other factors contributing to it. Like our weather cycle, our solar cycle, they go hand in hand. You know, we are going to have a famine, a worldwide famine. It's a fact. There's nothing anybody can do really. Well, again, there's things people could do to change it. It's just those that are in control, those that make the decisions, they don't want to change it. That's where the problem is. But there are things that we could all be doing. Unfortunately, a lot of them are against the law nowadays. Putting gardens in yards. You know, there's a lot of city and town ordinances now against having gardens in your yards if you live in city limits. It's been reported to me about different counties who've had that. So, you know, there's people that live out in the freaking country and they can't even have a garden in the yard and they live out in the country. It's amazing. It's crazy. But one thing that we could all do if, you know, we get Mr. Lawman to forgive us is we could put a garden in our yards and we could build a cheap, it doesn't cost much to build a cheap hoop greenhouse out of PVC and plastic. It just doesn't cost that much. Could that feed an entire family? Absolutely not. But at least it could take some of the burden off of having to buy these goods other places. It would also teach a lot of people a lot of things. We could also get healthier. But see, that again, it goes against what those in control want to do. So just keep an eye on this stuff with what's going on with Russia and their sanctions that we're putting on them and the sanctions they're doing in return. I've seen another thing to do with Russia today, and I don't think that I pulled it up, and I do not see it in my list of thingies, my list of links. Okay, so I did see another article today, and I apologize. I should have put it in my bookmarks, but I didn't. About agricultural products and how they're fighting back with those as well. I think it's that they will not sell any, I'm pretty sure it's they won't sell any agriculture products to any of the countries that have sanctions against them, is what I'm pretty sure it is. And that's kind of important right now, considering, again, the shortage of crops and stuff. They blame it on the drought. I'm not saying there's no drought. There's obviously a drought. But I think there's being a lot more, I think it's being fluffed up a lot more than what it really is. A lot of this stuff is planned. It's intentional. So anyway, let's go on to a little bit more news about Russia. Always got to have that. NATO claims Russia gathered 20,000 troops on the Ukraine border. NATO Deputy Secretary General Alexander Vershbow said Tuesday Russia had beefed up its troops along its border with Ukraine by some 20,000 soldiers. Russia broke into law with no justification, invaded Ukraine, backed separatists, now has 20,000 troops on Ukraine's eastern border, Vershbow wrote on his Twitter page. You gotta love Twitter. NATO has never looked for pretext to stir tensions with Russia, the Deputy Secretary General added in another message. For 20 years we worked on to build co-op with Russia. On Monday, the Russian Foreign Ministry said that NATO received its propaganda against Moscow in order to justify the alleged need to rally its ranks in the face of an imaginary external threat to NATO, to increase military expenditure and to boost the demand for alliance in the 21st century. The ministry also sharply criticized NATO Secretary General, and these names, I'm telling you, I think I need to study Russian, for his ungrounded confrontational rhetoric against Russia that resembles Cold War propaganda cliches. Okay, look. We need to get rid of NATO. We need to get rid of NATO, and we need to get rid of the United Nations. We need to go tell them to fly a kite. We, the people of the United States of America, we the people, because our government's not going to do it, we need to tell them to get out of our country, to get out of our lives, to get out of our money, to get out of our politics, to get out of our religion. We need to tell them to just get out, because I'm telling you right now, they don't have anybody's interest in mind except for the bankers and the corporations, the major corporations. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, that is who funds NATO and the UN. Also, if you pay close attention to the members of NATO and the UN, you will find members of especially the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. So we really don't need these people with corporate interest, with monetary interest, to be making decisions. You know, there's something that somebody had pointed out, and it's really important. You know, all of our programs, like our space program and these things, these type of things, they're all getting dwindled down into nothing. Then we have this thing, this health care plan, this Affordable Care Act. You know, there's a lot of doctors that's getting out of the medical care business because of this, whether it be because they can't afford any longer to operate, or at least that's what they claim, or whether it be because of all the added paperwork, or there's a million and one reason why a lot of doctors have to get out of the industry or choose to get out of the industry because of the Affordable Care Act. Okay, here's the thing. There weren't many doctors like on our general practitioner level that had helped in making the decisions for the Affordable Care Act, okay? So here's the thing with that. Sure, we need something. We need some kind of help with health care. We need changes, but it's being done in the wrong ways and on the wrong levels. What is going on is you've got these idiots in these suits and ties, right, that are sitting in Congress, and they're making all these decisions, but they have no knowledge, they have no experience in the areas to make these decisions. That is a recipe for disaster. They're doing the same, and I just brought up the Affordable Care Act and medical situation, because the same thing is going on with corporations and bankers, right? Because they are the ones that's making the decisions. We cannot allow that to happen. That's not good for we the people. That doesn't protect each one of us individually. It just does not. They're interested in protecting themselves. If you have any doubts about that, look at what Monsanto's doing. It's amazing the different laws that Monsanto have had put in place that says that we the people cannot sue them, or for anything that they do that may cause permanent harm to us. We can't do it. In fact, I don't know if it's in here. Again, I ran across a lot of news today, but I was trying to cover the Ebola deal, and I still haven't heard anything on whether or not I can release that information, and I don't see anything yet, so I don't reckon I should. So anyway, no, I don't. Let's go ahead and continue, though. North Korea, we always get wonderful news out of there. Isn't that a wonderful, happy, shiny president? North Korea may use the Bido, pronounce it however you wish, potato, system to attack Seoul fears. After North Korea sent a delegation to China to learn how to use the Bido navigation system, South Korea is worried that how the satellite system may be used by the Korean People's Army in any potential war, according to the Seoul-based Dong-A-Ibu. Anyway, why can't they just have names like Frank and Tom and Joe? I'm just kidding. 19 experts from 8 Asian countries, Thailand, Missouri, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, Cambodia, Laos, North Korea, and Pakistan were recently invited to a satellite operations center in Hebei province in the northern China to receive training on how to operate the BDS. By October 2012, China had already put 16 satellites in orbit for the Global Positioning System. BDS is therefore able to produce services to all nations in the Asia-Pacific region. Newspam, a Seoul-based website, reported the BDS has been installed in 10,000 taxicabs in Bangkok. With this satellite system, the People's Liberation Army is able to conduct precision strikes against military targets in the region as well. Okay, this is where I see an issue with this. If you know anything about technology, if you know anything about data transmission, and you know anything about hacking, you realize there is no such thing as security. I don't care how many bits you have it encrypted in, it's not secure. Okay, because if you're able to encrypt it, you're able to unencrypt it. Let me tell you something. A lot of people don't know this, and you can go fact check this if you'd like, but the radar detector was actually invented before the radar. And when I say radar, I'm not talking about the kind of military, I'm talking about speed radar. The radar detector was actually invented before the speed radar. You can go fact check that if you like. It's the truth, okay? So let me explain this. The best way for a hacker to learn how to hack is to reverse engineer things. So a lot of times when a new encryption comes out, like say it's, I don't know, 256-bit encryption, okay? Somebody reverse engineered that in the first place to be able to create it, okay? So when it comes to the internet, when it comes to cybersecurity, there is no such thing. It's like trying to find a unicorn, okay? It just doesn't exist. So what my point is behind that, we have to be careful of the technology that we bring. We have to have a clear understanding that anytime new technology exists, if there's any type of data transmission that goes back and forth, somebody else is going to be able to intercept and decrypt that data transmission. So what my point is, I'm not saying we shouldn't, they shouldn't have put up a new global positioning system and all that, but I kind of don't understand why this is even news. It's kind of like, duh. They didn't even have to invite them to, and why did they invite them? Doesn't make a lot of sense. But hey, the world is a stage. I keep telling you that. People have been encouraged to commit acts in this country for quite a while now. They've been told how to do it. They've been told where to do it. It's just nobody's felt froggy, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I thought I would share that since North Korea is probably going to be the one that gets blamed for the EMP that goes off in this country. So that's the way it goes. So let's talk about some ISIS news. Why not? They're always lovely characters, aren't they? Always got good stuff going on. Good charities. Just kidding. ISIS battling to seize Iraq's largest dam, which can unleash a 15-foot wall of water on Baghdad. Yeah, they can either do that or they can, starve them from water. Who knows? Not who cares, who knows? Islamic militants in Iraq are battling to seize two of the country's largest dams as a breakaway al-Qaeda group seeks to consolidate control over the territory it took this year. Fighting between militants from the so-called Islamic State and Kurdish security forces raged for a third day near the Mosul Dam. Iraq's largest, Hisham al-Rafkani, member of the Nineveh, I should have got that right, that's biblical, member of the Nineveh Provincial Council, said in a phone interview. Man, I need to learn something other than English, what little bit I know. About 350 kilometers to the south, Iraqi forces engaged militants in the farmland and villages near the Haditha Dam. Khalid al-Hadithi, a city council chairman, said in an interview, the Islamic State, which previously known as the Islamic State in Iraq and al-Sham ISIS, has grabbed territory throughout Iraq and Syria and declared its own self-styled caliphate, highlighting the central government's inability to ensure security under the Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki. Strengthened with weapons seized from the Iraqi army, the group this week took two oil fields in predominantly Kurdish towns in the north, forcing thousands to flee their homes. And let me explain something about this. Where they are getting the bulk of their weapons is things that were left over there. And who left them over there? The United States. And then what's crazy beyond that? We want to send more. This is absurd. This is crazy. Okay? The government wants to send a bunch of, I want to say, one of the things they want to send over there is the missiles for like Apache helicopters. And this is what I have to ask, okay? I've been involved in flight for a little while now. 2006, I started in on Microsoft Flight Simulator, and it really taught me a lot about flying. And then eventually, what year was it? 2009. I would have to look at my shirt. I don't have my shirt anymore, but I have a picture of it. I think it was 2009 that I actually soloed in an ultralight aircraft myself. But anyway, that's not the point. It's easy to fly an ultralight, but what's not easy to fly is a helicopter. It's just not. It's one thing for me to sit here in the computer chair on Microsoft Flight Simulator and do its type of startup, which means I really don't flip no buttons or switches. I just kind of load in and I go flying. That's one thing. That's easy to do. To fly a helicopter in real life takes quite a bit of skill, and it takes a lot of knowledge. Not only does it, you have to get in the air, you have to keep it in the air, and you have to not smash it into the ground. That's one thing. The other thing is understanding the weapon systems of these helicopters. These are pretty highly advanced weapon systems on these Apache choppers. Who is teaching these people how to do this. And I know I personally haven't heard about a bunch of ISIS flying around in Apache helicopters, but I have heard that they do have them. I have heard that, you know, they have tanks, they have all kinds of other things. I'm curious to know where they're getting the ammunition and where they're getting their training. I just, you know, the last I knew, you can't go to AutoZone and get an owner's manual for an Apache helicopter. They were all out when I went anyway. I was going to go, but they were sold out. They must have been bought by ISIS, huh? Anyway, so this is just crazy, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop. And again, we're the reason why they're there. We're the reason they're armed and everything else. I just wished the truth could come out about this. It's sad. Nobody. People don't need to be dying over this. This is absurd, and they're just doing it to destabilize everything. And it's coming here, and it's coming here very, very quick. So I know I keep warning about it. People probably don't think it's going to happen. Trust me, it's going to. Let's go on. Another little bit of news here. We got another Edward Snowden, it would seem. New leaker disclosing U.S. secrets, government says. Good. A lot of us have been trying to do that. The federal government has concluded there's a new leaker exposing national security documents in the aftermath of surveillance disclosures by former NSA contractor Edward Snowden. U.S. officials tell CNN. Uh-oh. If it's an official telling somebody, you gotta smell fish. Proof of the newest leak comes from the national security documents that form the basis of news stories published Tuesday by The Intercept, the news site launched by Glenn Greenwald, who also published the Snowden leaks. The Intercept article focuses on the growth in U.S. government databases of known or suspected terrorist names during the Obama administration. The article cites documents prepared by the National Counterterrorism Center dated August 2013, which is after Snowden flew to Russia to avoid U.S. criminal charges. Greenwald has suggested there was another leaker. In July, he said on Twitter, "It seems clear at this point that there was another. Government officials have been investigating to find out who." Okay, let me stop there for a moment. Michael Hastings had some inside information that he was going to report. They droned him. He's driving down the road in his car, and they droned him. So let me tell you something. Don't buy this. First off, Twitter is not where I would be getting important information. You know, you don't go to Twitter, right? If you want important news information, first of all, don't go to your local news channel. Don't go to CNN, MSNBC, and all that junk, because you're not going to get the truth. You're going to get sugar-coated stories. You might as well watch the Jersey Shore to get your news, because it's not much better. But you're not going to have these government officials telling you anything truthful, important, or honest on Twitter. Okay, it boggles my mind that people fall for this stuff. If you've listened to me long enough, you know I really don't buy all the Edward Snowden stuff. I think that was pretty much a setup in itself. Not 100% sure on the validity of the WikiLeaks with Julian Assange. I would say if I were to follow any of them, it would be Julian Assange. I think he was probably more straightforward than any of the others. But again, if they really wanted him, they would have him. Trust me on that. You cannot hide from these people. The only way you could possibly hide from these people is freaking in a cave somewhere or something with no type of connection, data connection, voice connection of any kind, anywhere at any time. I assure you of this. They have no problem finding somebody they want to find. This is crazy. Let's go ahead and amuse ourselves, okay? The biggest database, called the Terrorist Identities Data Mart Environment, now has 1 million names, a U.S. official confirmed to CNN. That boosted from half that many in the aftermath of the botched attempt by the so-called underwear bomber to blow up a U.S.-bound jetliner on Christmas Day in 2009. BS. The growth of and other more specialized terrorist databases and watch lists was a result of vulnerabilities exposed in 2009 underwear plot, government officials said. Now, there's an image that goes around Facebook. I see it from time to time, and it says, if you're not on a terrorist watch list, you should be ashamed of yourself. And I have to laugh because it's pretty much true. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying anybody should do or be anything bad, but when you go through and you look, it's no secret. When you go look to see what it takes or what little it takes to be deemed a terrorist in this country at this time, when you have things like just being a Christian, for example, or just somebody that's outward about their opinions, yeah, we pretty much, they have a reason to declare each and every one of us a terrorist. So I don't even get why this is news. I think they're trying to downplay it a little bit more. I still have the link here, by the way, blacklisted. You might be able to. I would go to Google and search this. I can add the link after the show. The Secret Government Rulebook for Labeling You a Terrorist. And this is no joke. This is real information. I'll have to add the link again since I mentioned it in the news. I'll add the link again after the show. But you can actually go, if you scroll all the way down. Oh, not all the way down. Apparently, there's a lot of comments. If you scroll to the bottom of the article, not all the way down like I just did. Well, I didn't make it all the way down. But right here, if you scroll down to the bottom of the article, you have the actual link to the PDF. Okay, so I do believe you'll be able to see this. Yep. So and you can download a copy of this for yourself and see for yourself what they're deeming. It's absurd. This is crazy, and this is a real document. This is not anything bogus. I already have a copy saved, but once again, just kind of giving you a clue. This is crazy. They've got a reason to basically declare each and every American citizen in this country a terrorist. We're all supposed to be watched, but hey, open up the southern border and just let anybody walk in. They're okay. I mean, they're okay. There's no problems there. But you better watch that American that's waving that American flag, because he's probably a pretty dangerous individual. Well, the truth is, we like our freedom, and we want to keep our freedom. They like control, and they want to control. That's what the problem is. So anyway, this is kind of what the cover letter of it looks like, and here's the article. And let me tell you something. Somebody's not going to sit here and do set all this stuff up just because they're crazy. There's 166 pages in here. People aren't going to just do this because they're bored and they want to scare people. Okay, this is an actual document, and it can be verified other places. I can tell you that much. I have actually verified this document. Anybody knows whose signature that is, by the way? I wonder whose signature that is. Interesting. I would say my feelings on it, but I believe I'll withhold. How's that sound? But anyway, yeah, it's an important document. I know 166 pages long. Look, there's several pages of signatures, so it's not that bad. I understand. The Agenda 21's 351 pages, and I can't get anybody to read it. I have actually had a couple people read it and get back with me, by the way. So those of you that haven't are behind. Okay, so I guess I didn't hear anything back about what I can or cannot share on Ebola. So I'll just share. I got a couple quick news stories. I'll share those with you, and then we'll go from there. Ebola already in the USA across American borders, doctors fear. Mount Sinai Hospital is testing an American who visited West Africa for possible Ebola infection. Displaying symptoms of Ebola, ABC News and Fox News are now reporting on August 4th. From March 1918 to January, well, I'm not going to get into that. What I will say, and this has, I have heard this in other places. I'm just kind of reading through to see if they've updated it or something. What I do know, and what I will tell you, is that Mount Sinai has actually tested people, 6 people, not just one, 6. From what I've heard, and again, this I've heard other places too, I'm sure I can share it, is that 4 of those people have tested negative for Ebola. However, I do want to point out that they aren't saying anything, to my last knowledge, about the other 2. So if you can kind of put things together for yourself, go right ahead, because I can't say it right now. So anyway, that was their take on it, which ain't much. I'm just going to cover it real quick. I did over 3 hours, half of it being on Ebola Sunday night. So, and I'm not trying to fearmonger, but I'm saying we better watch this. We better watch this very, very close. Ebola outbreak. World Health Organization urged to follow experimental drugs to treat disease. I mean, the headline says it all. I mean, it really does. We have to be very careful of this. When they treated the gentleman, and I'm having a problem pulling his name up just right offhand, the gentleman that we went over and we got from Liberia, flew him into Atlanta, Georgia, and started treating him. Kent Brantley, yeah, there he is. The word that they used, and it really bothers me, the word they used when they tried this experimental drug called ZMapp on him was miraculous. They said they discovered, or they'd seen a miraculous change in his situation, his health situation. Be very careful of that. There's another document. I don't have it up right now. I will get this stuff up for you tomorrow, because I'm sure there's going to be quite a bit of Ebola news that I'll do tomorrow. But the government's been given approval that they can use experimental drugs in a case of emergency on the American people. And you better believe when I say that they mean to force these drugs, if need be, on the American people. You have to be very wary of that. Don't ever let somebody force you to take an injection of any kind. There just can't be any good in that. If you're worried about it, if you're concerned about it, make sure you take self-responsibility. I mean, if you're that worried about it, get yourself a full suit. And I'm not joking, and I'm not pointing, I'm not saying, I wished I could afford it. If I could afford it, I would have one. I assure you, I promise you. When things went south in my marriage, I lost all the stuff that I had for survival and for prepping, but I had M10M gas masks. And yes, I do wish that I had my M10M gas masks. I wish anything I had my gas mask to protect in the case of this, because they're still not saying that it's an airborne virus. They're still not going that far. But I think all of those that have been keeping a close eye on this situation, I think, have pretty well figured out that it is without a doubt an airborne virus. You can tell that by how the people, especially in this country, are reacting around infected or possibly infected patients. Just because they're not wearing all this crazy gear in Africa doesn't mean diddly. I'm telling you that right now. If this is what I think it is, and what many others have been trying to point out that they think it is, they're testing down there. It's that simple. They're testing down there. We'll see. Just keep an eye on it. If this thing gets loose, and if it's as nasty, and if it's as communicable as what I believe, it's not going to take long. It's really not going to take long. In the next 30 days, we can see this entire country transformed. It really can happen that quick. And if you don't think it can, just go study some history. Go study some plagues in history. It just does not take long. And then when you study those plagues from history, I want you to think about something. They didn't have the transportation and the mass transportation back in them times that they do now. So, they didn't have literally tens of thousands of people flying on planes from major city to major city each and every day. there also wasn't, the population wasn't as high. Schools weren't so populated and everything else. So this thing, you know, whether it's this or whether it's any other type of highly infectious disease, if it gets out and gets loose, it will spread in this country like mad, and it won't take long. When I say 30 days, I'm stretching it. I'm stretching it. If something's highly infectious, you know, my personal opinion is it could be spread out so bad and so far within 2 weeks it would be unbelievable. And this thing, I believe it has like a up to a 21 day or whatnot incubation period. That's quite long, and that's quite dangerous because, you know, by that 3 weeks of time, wow, there could be people from almost every single, well, for sure, every metropolitan area in the country within that 3 week period could be infected with it and be a carrier. And then from there, it just doesn't take long. It could get crazy quick, folks. So just be prepared. That's about all I can say. Just be prepared. Well, that's what I have for you tonight. I'll try and be a little more organized tomorrow night and trying to have a little bit more information for you. Again, I was hoping to get some approval to share a couple of things with you regarding the Ebola. That approval did not come. Hopefully I can get that for you tomorrow. And we'll go from there. Other than that, as I always tell you, may God be with you. May he walk with you each and every day till eternity. And I love you all. Be one with your spirit. Hang in there, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Good night, folks.